Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the fourth film in the Modern Apes franchise. While the first movie was directed by Rupert Wyatt, a guy who doesn't have many other directing credits, the second and third were helmed by Matt Reeves, who filmed Cloverfield in 2008 and got his big break directing these two high-budget, big studio films. Now he's on The Batman, so he's gotten on even more people's radars. So, we are hot off of a trilogy which received great critical acclaim and moderate box office success. Who are we assigning film number 4? Wes Ball. So, what has this guy worked on? The Maze Runner. Okay, well, maybe he worked his way up to bigger and better Okay, The Maze Runner 2. Okay, well, maybe he finally spread his wings after that, and The Maze Runner 3. Okay, so this guy's experience involves working off pre-existing properties. Let's see how responsible he is with looking into things he's adapting, because he was also put in charge of the coming live-action Zelda movie.
Do you have a favorite Zelda game?
I better not say.
Okay, got it, Wes Ball. Seriously, what is with Hollywood these days in putting directors in charge of IPs that they obviously aren't fans of and aren't even interested in becoming fans of?
I am the type of Star Wars fan that doesn't even have a favorite movie. I just want to live in the universe of Star Wars continually, in perpetuity, forever. So when people are like, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? I'm like, there is no Star Wars movie. There is only Star Wars.
And I want you to get out of this office right now. I don't want you here. Out!
Okay, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on him. Let's see how Wes Ball did in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Okay, there's about 7 hours worth of movies leading up to this movie, so I'm gonna get through it all as quickly as possible. James Franco develops a drug that makes apes smarter, but this drug ends up killing most of humanity and turning a ton of them into mindless animals. Patient zero for this is Caesar the ape. He escapes and starts a happy settlement of intelligent apes in the woods. The surviving humans who are immune to the virus ask Caesar if they can come onto his land to use a dam so they can get power. An ape named Koba, who hates humans, shoots Caesar and blames the humans to start a war between the two groups. Caesar recovers and kills Koba and stops the fighting, but not before the humans call in for backup from the surviving military. Woody Harrelson shows up as an army general and sneaks into the ape colony and kills Caesar's wife and son, so Caesar hunts him down in a revenge quest and stumbles upon a little ape concentration camp. He gets captured but stages a revolution and he leads the apes to a new life in the woods, but he got shot during the escape and dies. We then move on to many generations in the future, and now we are fully entrenched in the, quote, Planet of the Apes. While the first 3 movies were about the human world falling apart and the ape society growing, this movie is a full departure from that status quo. Now the cities are overgrown and the only humans remaining are those that were infected by the virus that wander around in herds like cattle and smaller pockets of immune, intelligent survivors staying in advanced bunkers made by the government before society fell. Our protagonist Noah lives in a peaceful village of apes with tall towers and wooden architecture, and their culture heavily involves falconry, with each ape finding a falcon to raise and bond with for life. After Noah's first egg gets smashed in an accident, he goes out that night on his horse to find another egg before their big falcon bonding ceremony the next day. When he gets to the outskirts of the village, he finds the town scouts have all been killed by a bunch of apes on horseback with taser sticks, led by a giant gorilla. They see Noah's horse and follow it back to the village and set everything ablaze and start kidnapping and killing everyone. Noah climbs to the tallest tower where his dad keeps all the eagles and urges him that they have to leave, but his dad is still setting all the eagles free. Before the two can flee, however, the gorilla shows up and they have a 2v1 boss fight that results in Noah getting thrown off of the tower and his dad getting killed by the gorilla. The next day, Noah wakes up and vows to find the captured villagers and bring them home. While tracking them down, he bumps into Raka, the best character in the movie. He's an orangutan who's a scholar and a scientist, at least in ape terms, so he learns as much as he can and jots it down in his books. He is incredibly into Caesar and admires how he approached leadership with good morality and compassion, and he's aware of some of his main tenements: apes together strong, and ape no kill ape. Noah tells him that the raiders killed his dad and abducted his village, and Raka shares that they did the same with his friend, so he joins Noah on his quest and the two continue on horseback. When they set up camp in a fire that night, Rocka notices that a human girl is watching them. Being the scientist that he is incredibly fascinated with the humans. At this point, since all of the humans that the apes meet have succumbed to the disease, humans are seen as sort of a deer at this point. Simpleton pests who just run around in herds and aren't worth too much. No offense to deer, don't get me wrong. There's even a funny joke where the two are in an overgrown airport and Rocka theorizes that this was a facility where the ape ancestors kept humans and nurtured them, having no idea of what an airport was. Rocka throws an apple to the girl and she wolfs it down like a feral animal, and she starts following them on their quest, even though Noah just sees her as a pest and Rocka names her Nova, because he knew Caesar made friends with a girl once and named her Nova. The next day they get attacked by the raiders and Nova gets separated from the pair in some tall grass. The gorilla and his men fan out, combing through the grass looking for her, and she stands up out of options and yells out Noah's name, and he comes and snags her on his horse just in time before the gorilla could get her, and they all escape. She then, in perfect English, tells them that her name is May, and that the raiders killed her people as well, and that she was acting more feral to have an advantage if anyone came upon her. The next day, they're all crossing a monkey-made bridge, getting closer to the raiders' settlement when they get ambushed on the bridge. May gets tackled off of the bridge into the hostile rapids and is barely hanging on by a net. Rocka sees this and immediately jumps into the rushing water to save her, and with one hand on the bridge, he pulls her in closer so that she can get a better grip. Unfortunately, Rocka slips and he grabs the netting and is barely hanging on, and with the ape thugs pinning Noah down, he's forced to watch as Rocka looks at him and says, "Apes together strong," and the gorilla cuts the net and sends him tumbling through the rapids to his death, which made me very sad. They are then taken to the raiders' base, which is a unique setup. It's a massive beached cargo ship next to a giant dam that they built, so they have a large sandy bay, and on the other side of this bay, on the side of a mountain, is a massive vault door. Our two heroes are separated, with Noah being forced to listen to the sermon of the king of the raiders, Proximus Caesar, and May being taken to meet with Trevathan, a human that acts as Caesar's sort of royal consort. We learn that Proximus Caesar is an acolyte of the Caesar we knew, and has bastardized his philosophy into basically just ape supremacy. And the reason this base was built around this vault was because Trevathan told him that it was a human bunker that was filled with technology, weapons, and supplies. And Proximus Caesar is obsessed with the idea of advancing the apes as a species, so he wants all those supplies. Meanwhile, Trevathan is just telling May that he wants to know if she has any idea of how to get into the vault because she is an intelligent human like him, and she says no. She expresses to him that the apes should stay out of the vault as those were the creations of humans, and he tells her that she needs to get with the times and understand that this is the apes' world now. That night, May and Noah reunite, and she tells him that she actually knew about the vault and knew of a secret entrance to it, so the two hatch a plan. She collects a lot of gunpowder from the beach, don't ask me how, and they place it all along the dam that the monkeys have built, and they plan to flood the place after getting inside and allowing Noah's people to escape. However, Trevathan expected that they would be up to something and walks straight up to them, alone, and basically says, "I gave you a chance to join me, May. Now my apes will torture and kill you horribly." So, after threatening their lives and telling them that he's going to go tell his apes to come and torture them brutally, he turns his back to them casually and starts walking away. So naturally, May walks up and just strangles him. Westball, ladies and gentlemen. They infiltrate the vault through the back of the entrance, and it's filled with tanks, guns, classrooms, and tons of facilities. And May grabs some sort of data chip and a revolver and says, "Okay guys, let's leave. Once I open the door, let's blow up the dam so this place floods and they can't have the weapons, and you can grab your people and escape in the commotion." But Proximus Caesar is waiting for them on the other side with all of his slaves and warriors behind him on the beach. May then pulls her gun, and Proximus Caesar, still ecstatic that he gets what's in the vault, tells her she can leave. And instead of saying, "Well, I want you to release the slaves, or at least spare Noah, or I'll shoot you and your bitches," she runs over to the detonator they set up and explodes the entire dam. So in her mind, she has just murdered the whole army of apes and all of the innocent slaves as well, because she does not want the apes to have technology that the humans created. We'll get to how this slots in with her motivations later. She's kind of a bitch. Fortunately, while the bad guy apes have been living more like people at this bay, the apes from Noah's village were much better at climbing trees, so only they were able to make their way up through the bunker and escape the water, while the other bad guy apes drown. Noah has a big boss battle with the gorilla, and he's able to win by luring him into a tight corridor of pipes and then using his small size to escape through, while the gorilla is stuck under the rising water and drowns. So Noah avenges his father and Raka by taking down the gorilla. Noah then joins all of his villagers that survived by climbing up and out of the bunker on a balcony overlooking the ocean, and Proximus Caesar was laying in wait there and gets the drop on him, dominating him in the fight. But Noah gets up and performs the eagle song of his people that they used to perform to summon their eagles back at their village. And then 9 eagles that had been waiting by the camp for their enslaved masters swoop in and slice away at Proximus Caesar until he is ripped off the balcony, clung to by the birds, and sent to his doom. So the good guys win. The story then wraps up with the apes rebuilding their village and continuing to live in peace, and May coming to say goodbye to Noah in a very strange scene. She basically just says, "Hey, sorry for almost killing you and your entire village as collateral damage when I didn't have to whatsoever. By the way, what I did was right, and the concept of humans and apes living together is ridiculous. Okay, bye." And she's holding a gun behind her back the whole time in case this conversation didn't go well. Can't imagine why it wouldn't. So then in the final reveal, May heads to another bunker and drops off the data pack, and we see a whole bunch of intelligent humans inhabiting it. Turns out what May took from the vault was an activation key for a giant antenna that this other bunker was under. The humans then make contact with another settlement of humans that had been broadcasting, and they all rejoice because they didn't know if there were any survivors left. And the movie comes to a close. First off, I want to talk about Noah, who has the unfortunate task of filling Caesar's ape-sized shoes as the new protagonist. Noah is fine. He's likable, and it's always more pleasant watching a character who does the right thing and is kind, but he suffers from what I'll call generic protagonist syndrome. This is what happens when you have a character who is pretty bland, and most of their actions involve, "I'm gonna do the right thing all the time and save the day." So while yes, the story has his family die and his village enslaved to invoke sympathy in the viewer, you honestly don't care all that much about him when you're watching the movie because he just isn't that interesting. While yes, he is given a motivation to avenge his father and his people, it just feels pretty generic, and since we didn't spend much time with his father or his village, his motivation just feels a bit shallow and doesn't really hit as much as they wanted it to. Caesar was far more interesting because while yes, most of his actions involve doing the right thing, Andy Serkis's performance just fleshed him out so much more, and we got to see him reacting to a ton of different stimuli and go on multiple arcs throughout the movies. In Rise, he learns to stand up for himself and leave home. In Dawn, he realizes that apes together strong doesn't mean that all apes are allies and that they shouldn't consider themselves wildly superior to humans. And in War, we see him descend and give in to his anger, leaving his village and going to kill Woody Harrelson's character, who killed his family, when he gets a chance to escape at the end. What emotional journey do we see Noah go on in this movie to endear him to us? Well, his dad is killed and his people get taken, so he goes to the people responsible and kills them, learning nothing along the way. He's not put in any situations in which he's forced to compromise his sense of morality or react in a way that teaches us more about his character. All the development he gets is that he learns how to bond with an eagle when he wasn't able to do it before. They plant a little seed of a character arc by having him feel some guilt because he feels like he led the raiders to his village, but that doesn't get brought up again in the movie. So while Noah is a nice boy, he's just not provided the same opportunities that Caesar was to be interesting. And without the exceptional motion capture performance by Andy Serkis, you're not breaking through the generic ceiling. Raka, on the other hand, I love this man. Monkey, ape. Everything I said was wrong with Noah, Raka surpasses in 1/3 of the screen time. This man has hobbies, interests, a sad backstory, a unique character design, and he glazes Caesar in a way that feels great after watching poor Caesar suffer through 3 movies. Raka's scenes are dual purpose in that not only are we being provided a character and shown his interests when he tells Noah about his books and his studies, but world building is being done as well. By showing us the inferences that Raka gets wrong about the state of the world and how it works, we are shown about where we are in the timeline, how much the modern apes know about what went down with Caesar, and underscoring the reveal later that May is not one of the simple-minded humans he was studying. The man also has a wonderful self-sacrifice, giving his life for one of the creatures he took pity on and showed a lot of fascination with. Only for her to be a complete bitch later, of course. His animation is also the best in the movie. The way his eyes move and his lips sync with the dialogue, it's literally like they put an actor in amazing makeup, but it's all CG. For every second that he's on the screen, the movie was elevated. Until he died. I don't want to spend too much time on May because she sucks. She accepts all this help from these apes all through the movie, sees firsthand that they're intelligent and have personalities, has Raka die for her, and then at the end of the movie she still looks down on them and was fine killing all of them in the flood. Now, I'm not gonna say that racists aren't real and that every character needs to be a nice person, but the music of the scenes and the amount of time we spend with May really tells the audience that the movie wants you to feel happy for her and the humans that think like her when they get the data chip and accomplish their goals and she survives. But she's just an awful person. The devil's advocate may argue that she was trying to keep tanks and weapons out of the hands of clear marauders by flooding the vault, and that she felt sacrificing the slaves was for the greater good. But she's given multiple scenes in the movie in which she spells out explicitly that her motivation for destroying the contents of the vault is to erase the perversion of these unnaturally developed apes using the inventions and belongings of man. Not anything more noble than that. So May sucks. Our villain Proximus Caesar was decently interesting, with him also glazing Caesar just for the wrong reasons. He was a greedy, narcissistic warlord who is obsessed with the evolution of apes in his empire. He's pretty one-note and pales in comparison to Koba from the previous movies, who again is put into far more interesting situations which challenge his character and provide him the opportunities to show the audience who he is. 1. If your little group of surviving humans is reliant on moving through the woods in a world full of violent apes, why are you A, sending skinny little Freya Allen to do this instead of someone stronger and faster, and B, not giving her, oh, I don't know, a gun? Oh, but tee-hee, maybe they just didn't have a gun to give her. No, the vault we see in this movie has tons of guns, so you're telling me that her vault, which actually has people in it, and has insane satellite technology, does not possess one single firearm? Westball, ladies and gentlemen. 2. If you're building a giant vault full of tanks and weapons that can withstand insane explosions and force, why are you building a hidden entrance that is just by the top with windows that can be broken into? Westball. 3. When the vault floods, the scene is tense because the water level is rising, but we see the apes climb right at the start. So why is the ocean water magically rising way above sea level to provide these scenes? 4. In the final battle of Noah versus Proximus Caesar, it is literally a crowd of like 22 of the village's apes watching as he 1v1 Caesar. We are given no justification as to why they don't all just Bugs Life that shit and jump his ass and beat him easily. Instead, they all watch as their neighbor Noah just 1v1s him, and when he wins, they're all like, yay, we did something. 5. I already addressed it, but no one in their right mind walks up to their prisoners who are meddling with shit and says, oh, okay, I'm gonna go get the guards and they'll murder you to death. Bye-bye, I'll be right back. And then turns their back on the prisoners. This character was depicted as being a very intelligent human, and he does that shit. So, I've talked about the subpar character work and the plot holes, but I think that there are 2 obvious flaws to address with this movie. The first being that this is just an unnecessary story. How many times have we gotten a 4th installment that needlessly continues a story when a trilogy was tied up nicely with a bow? Because the movie just doesn't feel like a part of Caesar's story, it just doesn't have a sense of belonging here. On top of that, it's sad because the world Caesar wanted to see was one in which man and ape lived together in harmony. But in the future, we just see them all divided, so other than Caesar kicking off all the events many generations ago and him getting some lip service in the movie, this really has nothing to do with him. And speaking of Caesar's movies, I think I know what one of my biggest problems with this film was. If we look at 1, 2, and 3, they pick a lane and they stay in it. 1 and 2 are movies that choose to focus heavily on how ape and human societies clash when they're forced to inhabit the same geographical space. 3 takes the character that was built in 1 and 2 and puts him on a revenge quest and doesn't focus on the social dynamics. This movie tries to have both and suffers as a result. After enjoying the revenge quest element for about an hour, the movie gets bogged down in May and Trevathan's monologues about the state of the world and their hatred or appreciation for the apes, and we spend far too much time focusing on May's mission to permit the humans to talk to one another. Like I said, we don't care about the status of humanity in the apes' world in this movie because it's supposed to all just be about revenge, and we're supposed to say, okay, yeah, the humans phased out, that's where we are now. But Ball allows it to take up way too much runtime, and the revenge quest suffers greatly as a result. I know I spent most of this review ragging on the movie, but call me a toxic parent making excuses because I just know it has so much potential and can be better. The effects in this movie are incredible, especially on my boy Raka, and the action scenes are super well done and exciting, and the pace of the movie is great as well. There's a lot of exciting action set pieces sprinkled throughout the movie, and the fights involving the gorilla are great because he's physically imposing, fights like a monster truck with its brakes cut, and he has an amazing voice that is modulated to be deep and scary. There are a lot of pieces of very compelling stories in this movie, and they're definitely very yummy pieces, but this isn't an organized, focused meal. All that being said, I definitely did have a great time with this movie. I just know it could have been much better. And frankly, this franchise deserved much better. Anyway, that's all I've got to say today, guys. I hope you have a good one, and I hope you take care. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.